mind. So let's just go into our meditation position. Just bringing to mind our motivation. So to enter into Tantra, as we discovered in these 3 classes, or we're just kind of becoming more and more familiar with, the importance of actually what our motivation is when we move into Tantra. That's so important. The motivation needs to be influenced by our understanding or experience of the 3 principles of the path.
You know, we should have made a little refuge real quickly.
The first one being, getting a really deep insight into the nature of suffering. How karma and delusion, the causes of suffering, are operating, functioning in our mind and blocking our experience of happiness. So we need to have a deep insight into our own experience of that. And then on that basis, we develop this kind of deep inspiration, aspiration to liberate ourselves of this kind of plague, that we've had from many lifetimes, beginningless lifetimes. That's kind of hard concept to wrap our mind around. But once we get a sense of the continuity of consciousness, it doesn't stop, it doesn't die at the death time, and we get a deep sense of that. Then comes a sense that, we've always existed in some form or other. It's almost a bit like Groundhog Day. Don't know if we've seen that movie. That's quite famous.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like that with samsara. We keep getting reborn, waking up in an experience of ourselves, a slightly different way, different body, different personality, but it's just going on and on and on. So renunciation is recognizing that deeply and getting tired from that, feeling disillusioned from that, recognizing the harm that it's bringing to ourselves and others. Like these great yogis, Milarepa, Marpa, even His Holiness in this lifetime, the Dalai Lama, how much effort they put into practice, because they're so keenly aware of this situation we're in. So renunciation is getting a deeper and deeper awareness of that, and a deeper and deeper inspiration, which naturally comes to liberate yourself from that situation. So with that kind of motivation, on top of we're all in the same boat, feeling that deeply for other beings, Then we practice Sutra and Tantra together, feeling like, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche would say, my suffering, the suffering of all sentient beings, is kind of unbearable. We need to get to that place where we feel it intently for ourselves and others. So the practice of Tantra can kind of quicken, as we're saying, as I've said, so we purify the mind and quicken that experience of renunciation, bodhicitta, and bring about the experience, the liberating quality, the liberating wisdom, realizing emptiness in our mind more quickly. We want to get out of this kind of Groundhog Day situation, beginning with rebirth, as quickly as possible. So then Tantra, we can sort of take off with Tantric practice. We're in the right, with the right motivation. The powerful methods of Tantra allow us to awaken our wisdom energy. The wisdom we need, powerful wisdom to really break through the delusions, slice through the delusions. That's what we need. Because I always say we can't underestimate the power of the delusions. So we need a very powerful antidote. So that's what with that, we get lots of energy to practice Tantra when we understand the benefits of that and how it's got this capacity along the Sutra and Tantra combined together to liberate ourselves, to be qualified to benefit others much, much more quickly. So others who we have karmic connection to benefit, to liberate, we definitely have, we can liberate them more quickly. It becomes almost more about others the more we progress, Especially through Tantra, it's become more and more from our bodhicitta motivation. Wanting to really benefit others, as we say in this tradition, kind mother sentient beings. Lift them out of some suffering, samsara more quickly with the skillful methods of Tantra. So let's just recite a few Shakyamuni Buddha mantras to start the class and trying to hold somewhere we can that motivation, strong wish for this class to benefit others, whatever we understand, hear, reflect, meditate on, to bring about the happiness ourselves and others, to bring about this liberating quality, this liberating wisdom within the heart and mind of me and all sentient beings. Tayada mene mene maha menaye so. 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 All right.
You're no longer connected to.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that. That's why I didn't share all the prayers. Can I still share this on the screen there? Or not really?
I don't have them.
Points? No? Well, it doesn't. Anyway, I'll just say what they are then. It's
You
not
want to
possible.
try to log back in
Log back into
to Zoom? Are you
Angie, I wanted to say that I'm connected with you all the time from Tenasket, all the times you say you're not connected. So I'm just saying that for your
You can hear
information,
me.
that you haven't lost
that
connection.
device there?
So they can hear, but they just can't see. Yeah.
They can see and hear because of this.
We can see you.
But your computer is not connected,
Yeah.
So you can't screen share.
Okay. Right.
So if you want to
Oh.
screen share, try to log back into Zoom.
But it keeps going in and out anyway.
Or maybe you should try my hotspot, John's iPhone. Go to Wi-Fi.
Okay. Be John's iPhone. Sorry about this. I should have come earlier so we could set this up. John's iPhone. We'll try one more time.
And the
If
password,
it's not working. Yes. It's
capital BODHI,
mm-hmm.
capital YESHE.
Bodhi Yeshi.
Uh-huh.
Wonder who they are. Okay, try this next. Right. Connected.
Okay, good.
So then I'll try and go into Zoom now.
Yes.
The Zoom connection.
Mhm.
One more time. Some Tara mantras here. Right, now one more time.
And then as soon as I see you, I'll make you a co-host.
Right. I hope we can stay about an extra 10 minutes or so tonight. So it's going to go slightly later since we're starting later. All right, we're here. Right. Okay. Welcome back again. Plenty of opportunities to practice patience this evening. Turn off my audio.
All set.
Right. Right. Well, we'll try the screen share.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Very good. Breathe a little bit now, John. It's quite hard. It's quite stressful when you have to do all this, isn't it? No, we're not. Are we starting here? Did I mention this last week? Did you get this slide last week?
Yes.
We did, yeah.
We did that one.
Okay, we did that. We did this, didn't we? We're here. I think we did the levels of consciousness.
No.
No. Okay, thank you for reminding me. So before we start there, what I wanted to do is just do a couple of question and answers. What are we getting for the class? So over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've talked a little bit about the differences between Sutra and Tantra. So who can recall some of those differences? Yes.
Isn't the
What's your
sutra?
name again?
Louis.
Louis, yeah. Louis, say it, Louis. And I'll repeat what Louis says, yeah.
So isn't sutra basically like the Hinayana and the Mahayana, and then Tantra would be like the Vajrayana?
That's correct. Yes, my question is more is what's the difference between those? There's some differences. I think maybe you missed the first couple. Were you here for the first couple of classes
Yeah, I
online?
watched them online.
Oh, you did, yeah. Okay, so yeah, so that it's true that these are the 3 vehicles, but there's some differences in those vehicles. Now we need to practice all of them, but there's a few differences. And anyone take some notes? If you take notes,
That there's wisdom and
Wisdom.
compassion, right? And they're practiced individually.
yes,
With the sutra, but with the Tantra, they're practiced together
yeah.
at the
So
same
that's one point that Louis is making. But in the why Tantra is swifter, you know, if you incorporate Tantra into your practice with Sutra as well, Sutra and Tantra combined, is because there's special methods through the visualization mantra and some other kind of subtle body meditations, you know, where you can, when you're meditating, you can meditate with one mind on the method and the wisdom side of the path, or we could say that at this point the compassion and the wisdom side of the path. Whereas when we're meditating in Sutra, why it takes longer is because you can only meditate with wisdom. You know, can only do a meditation on emptiness at one time. We can only do a meditation on compassion at one time. We can't meditate on both at the same time. So why Tantra becomes quicker is because of the special methods. We're collecting what we call the 2 accumulations, you know. So to achieve enlightenment, we need to collect merit, sometimes called method, and wisdom. So why it becomes faster is you can collect them simultaneously at the same time, you know, in the one type of meditation. So that makes it faster. Anything else? Differences between Sutra and Tantra? Maybe online, someone want to be brave enough? Not seeing any hands. Yes, Kim, thank you.
Okay, well, I'm going off my notes, so we'll see how well
Oh, that's
those
okay. I would expect
service.
that, you know.
Tantra is the resultant path, and Tantra teachings are more advanced than Sutra. So that's
What do we
that's a
mean by
note
the
I made.
resultant path? Kim,
I
any
don't know.
ideas what we mean by resultant? What do we mean by resultant?
Mary has her hand up.
Okay, Mary. A group answer here, yeah. Mary?
The resultant path is you're visualizing yourself as already there. And so you're starting with the result and going the other way, or trying to make that soak in, I guess you'd
We're
say.
going the other way, we're going backwards.
No, I don't mean that.
Okay. No, that's right, Mary. It's the resultant path.
Becoming method and wisdom together, and you start from visualizing as well as you can, and then it would slowly improve over time. Whereas, and then Sutra is like philosophy and meditating on one point at a time.
Yes. And also from the Sutra path, as I mentioned, so basically what we're doing is we're starting from the ground up in some ways, it's starting from the very ground of our Buddha nature, trying to connect really more directly with that from the very beginning. What are future enlightenments? It's based on the Buddha nature. And visualizing ourselves, using a special method of trying to visualize, imagine ourselves as who our future Buddha is going to be, So it's a different type of psychology as opposed to Sutra when you're chipping away at the problems. We're trying to focus on, I've got attachment and anger, and, we do need that as a basis because we need to remove a level of attachment for the mind, But there's a special psychology here where with the method, the visualizations, as I mentioned last week, these four purities, imagining ourselves as a deity, imagining ourselves doing the actions of a deity, having the enjoyments of the deity, it creates, what it's trying to do is chip away, and we use this with an understanding of selflessness, an understanding of emptiness. There's not a concrete Buddha sitting there, There's no concrete enjoyments, concrete environment. Everything's made of what we call bliss and emptiness, this experience of bliss and emptiness that we want to get to. That's the result in Tantra, this blissful, omniscient, peaceful, joyful experience, So we try and bring about that experience now, Of course, we need mantras, visualizations, purification. We need things because in the beginning, as Mary was saying, we don't feel it, So we need to create the causes and conditions to feel that. So that's what sadhana is. When we do the sadhana, we do offerings, we do dissolutions, we meditate on emptiness. So again, it shows that we need a backdrop of the three principles of the path. We need to release our attachment first because that's what's blocking our understanding of emptiness, So, and then we need to understand, at least conceptually, a little bit what emptiness is, And then, of course, the activity of deity is also, as we're going to move into what we're actually trying to, the main, what is a deity, what does that mean? We're going to go into that a little bit more. But the activity of becoming a deity, becoming a fully enlightened Buddha is because you're so much more qualified to benefit others. You have all these incredible skills and abilities. As we see, fortunately, as we see in some of our teachers, these great lamas and gurus, that are still they're like that, they have incredible qualities. So that's the kind of psychology of Tantra, bringing the result into the path, not waiting it's somewhere over there, and I'll feel that when I'm there, It's like, no, we want to bring it now. And there's techniques, as I mentioned last week, one of them is the 4 purities. When we receive an initiation, to try and hold that, to try and hold this idea that my body's the deity, all the environment's like a blissful palace. When people talk, it's like mantra, it's like divine sound. even if it's really horrible here. We try and meditate on the emptiness of the sound, you know. So trying to hold that kind of experience, you know. And once you've had tantric initiation, of course, that helps to wake up that experience in you a little bit, you know. Then we do retreats, we do mantras, we do fire pujas, there's certain things you do that they're all helping to wake up that experience, because ultimately that is who we are. That is our nature. It's just shut down right now to a level, you know. Maybe sometimes it wakens up and we get some insights for sure, but we need to kind of familiarize and bring that about. So that's Tantra's bringing that experience in now by, as I say, difference between Sutra and Tantra I mentioned last week, because we're activating. So I'll put up this, we've got this one that I'm showing here. We're activating more subtle levels of consciousness, you know, that can which we are innately our gross level, and well, we're innately our most subtle consciousness. But we can see, you know, sometimes when we dream, yeah, you have a really kind of visual, you know, very visual, strong dream. It really impacts your day, yeah. It can like affect you for quite a while, you know. So that's what we want to get into. We're subtle. So dream consciousness is a subtle consciousness. So if we could work with a dream consciousness, more subtle levels of consciousness, you can imagine how it impacts your waking day. So in Tantra, we're trying to access subtle, and of course, the very subtle level of consciousness. It's the purest level of consciousness. It's untainted by any delusion. And we touch that at the death time, as I've mentioned, but it's very hard to get that there this life, but we can through tantric practice, because when you activate, I mean, basically when we realize emptiness, we have a direct perception emptiness. Depends whether sutra or tantra, but either way, I mean, it's like it's like an earthquake in our in our reality, you know. It turns your whole world, what you thought existed, completely upside down, you know. Then you realize at that time everything you've done in the past has been a totally hallucination.
Yes.
Yes, somebody knows. Yeah, so even maybe in meditation, sometimes we touch that, you know, like when we realize how my mind's projecting right now is just a projection. Especially we want to get the I. That's some idea. So I think when we do tantric retreats, even if you do like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you know, you have to recite these 100,000 or something, 100,000. I think everybody gets some feeling there because you're touching subtle levels of consciousness with the mantras and the visualization. Even if you get a little bit of a knock, like this is a hallucination, because you awaken something more powerful inside. That can be very powerful to cut through our concepts, you know. Then we get a conviction in Tantra, you know, like what it can do to break through the concepts. Last week, there's 2 main things that Tantra practice is working on, either the level of Kriya Tantra, lower Tantra, or high Shubha Tantra. 2 main things I mentioned, ordinary what? I'll give you a clue with the first. They both start with ordinary, either online or in person. This 2 things, this is what we need to try and remember. You know, there's a lot to remember in some level, for sure, you know. But the 2 main things Tantra is working with very skillfully that we need to uproot to realize emptiness, to realize our true nature, to get that deep experience, our purity, our clarity, our bodhicitta, you know, who we are instead of who we think we are, who we constantly relate to as me, myself, and I. 2 things we need to chip away at and get an experience that we need to remove. Ordinary, yes.
Appearance.
Yes, ordinary appearance. What do we mean by ordinary appearance?
I think what you were just talking about, instead of seeing ourselves as a deity, just seeing ourselves like this.
That's ordinary appearance, the other one, yeah? Yeah, seeing ourselves as basically this concrete sense in me, myself, and I that we're wrapped in. You know, of course, sometimes we feel fluid and open and this and that, you know, and all, but I'll go with the flow. And no, I didn't feel that, but as soon as somebody criticizes you, right?
Yeah.
or we hear something we don't like, or we have to eat something we don't, I mean, for sure, we have to be honest. And the whole spiritual path's about becoming very sincere with where your mind is and being very clear with where your mind is, not in a heavy way, but just like, okay, I do have a me, myself, and I. If somebody hits you or it pops up there, the gacha, it's called in this tradition, the kind of the appearance of the eye and the mind, that's the main one. And it all revolves around our body, our mind, our feelings, our senses, depending on what's going on, it's stronger, depending on what our experience is right now through the body, mind, and feeling. If somebody hits you, it's like my body. If somebody criticizes you, it's like my, well, I don't know who they're criticizing. My mind, my feelings, So, and of course, we're not saying that's not difficult. I mean, to work through it, but so this is the main one. What we're trying to do in Tantra is kind of shift that, move that into another gear, who we really are, uproot this limited sense of self, because that's blocking the deity. That's blocking our unlimited potential, or is blocking our beautiful wisdom nature that can spread out and see all beings, see all phenomena, cut the Groundhog Day experience of continual rebirth, continually waking up in the same, almost like the same experience, but we forget, So that one is so precious. I think I mentioned at the class on Sunday when I was took to Normal Line, Lama Zopa Rinpoche has a project in the FPMT where one monk writes out the sutra. The main sutras on wisdom are called Prajna Paramita. And one monk writes it in gold for the organization. And it's like, he's been doing it for 20 years because it's like thousands of volumes. Thousands, it's called the 8,000 verse, sorry. And it's like, there's a 8,000 verse, 25,000 verse, 100,000 verse. So he's writing out, I think, the 8,001, which still is going to take some more years. But Lama Zopa Rinpoche wants that project done continually in the organisation for the success of the organisation. But so we create the causes to realise that, because it's so, I mean, that's what liberates us out of this confusion, that wisdom. So, and that's what we can access more quickly, more skillfully, and at a deeper level. We can realise emptiness at the level of Sutra and Tantra, but there's a way, which I'll explain as we go into the class, it's more subtle at the level of Tantra. And we can access it through tantric practices often more quickly than we can through sutra practices. So ordinary appearance, so this holding on, we want to nudge against that all the time. Push against it a little bit with the appearance of ourselves as a deity, with something more sublime, more open in the nature of emptiness. And then what's the other one? That it's ordinary appearance, and then there's ordinary. Anyone online? For maybe for your notes? Yes, thank you. Those two, because the appearance is almost like, it's not so much the dangerous one, it's the grasping, it's believing in the appearance. So we have an appearance of a mind, and I, a me, am I, a this, we do. We all have that, I think, unless you realised emptiness, but you probably wouldn't be in this class. You wouldn't have any to share with you. I mean, you wouldn't have any, you wouldn't need to hear, So, but the issue is the grasping at it. We cling on to that, we hold that very tightly. So there's no space for us to see how we do that, So again, in Tantra, we visualize as a deity, it's light, it's energy, it's blissful. It's somehow what Tantra does in purification, it creates space in the mind to see what's going on. What way does my I exist? Because if we're so tight on it, there's no way to see. If you're clinging on, it's like you can't see. So what we're trying to do is create space for these Tantra, almost like first. Actually, in all our practice, it's like creating space for the delusions, space for attack. We're not going to get rid of them right away, but we need a little bit of space. It's like an alcoholic goes to a conducive space to see stuff. No point in being in a bar. forget, you know what I mean, if an alcohol, drug addict. So we need to create an internal space, an internal environment to be able to work with our stuff. And lower Tantra is very skillful for that because it's a lot of purification, just mantras, or contemplating emptiness, and it helps us to shift through some of the grosser stuff in the mind, accessing a little bit more subtle level of consciousness, a little bit more clarity, so we can start to see how the I is appearing to the mind. Because if we can't see the target, we're not going to hit it, we're not going to know what it is we need to uproot. So we do need to see that as well in our practice. Even with attachment, with anger, we need to be able to see how destructive it is to the mind. We also want to see how this, once we've kind of pacified maybe like anger and attachment, that's more, softer in the mind, a little bit less powerful, because they sort of guard the me. They are protectors, we kind of, they guard it in some way. So when they're a little bit less through the practice of sutra, then we're able to see a little bit like just how the appearance of the I is, how it appears to the mind, and how we can chip away at that, how that unsettles our every experience. We never quite get to peace when that's there. Yes.
Did you say that anger and I guess any of our attachments are what guards the I?
They kind of, make it feel precious. Like it makes it keeps it stronger, it's like, okay, but I need this, I need to, excuse me, but I need to guard this precious one here. So we need to we need to, and we might not be doing it strongly, but we're all doing it in some way, for sure, I mean, I'm still doing it, right? So we're all still doing it, yeah. So we just need to be genuine, and we need to be able to see that. And then as they get less, then we're able to see even how the I, because we can I think the gross one is anger. Most of us understand and feel that anger is not helpful. We could go on for ages how anger is not helpful. Then the attachment, that's a little bit more hidden, that's behind the anger, and that's quite ingrained, so that takes a while to uproot, and it not completely, but just to see how actually attachment is even creating disturbance in the mind. Then when that reduces a little bit, because the pratimoksha vows, whether you've taken lay vows, the 5 lay vows, no killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, what's the other one? Alcohol. When we're referring to them, that's chipping away at attachments. Yeah. And then for us as monastics, when we take 36 vows, or for fully ordained monks, it's like 250 vows. For fully ordained nuns, it's 360 vows, something. What we're actually doing here is that's to protect attachment. That's to not protect attachment, to work with your attachment. It's all around like subduing attachment, the vows, creating this container of morality, pacifying attachment, container morality, so that realizations we can start to get. We've got an environment for realizations, so, and it's an environment for us to look deeper into how even the I is the only problem. There's no other problem. When we free ourselves of the I, there's no other problem. That's it. That kind of feels like hard to imagine, but when we no longer grasp at a truly existent self, there's nobody to have a problem about. There's no reference point for a problem. The whole problem comes to the reference point of the I. When we have a no I, there's no problem. The mind goes into, not that I know, but the mind experiences incredible peace. It's just blocked by the I. So this is part of Tantra, moving into Tantra to really get us, we need to also, study not just what the faults are, but like what we can experience with our mind when these delusions are removed, who we can become without the delusions. And that brings a sincere motivation to practice Tantra, because we want to get out more quickly. We want to liberate this me, myself, and I. I mean, many of us have good hearts, kind, maybe benefit the community. That's wonderful, but we've still got an I. And it's not that we don't exist. We do exist. We exist we will exist in incredible bliss, peace, happiness, joy, all that stuff. That in many ways, our consciousness, our subtle mind is craving that. It's like, when are you going to get to this already? You know, some part of us. You know, it's like, when are you going to wake this up already and this be your experience and stop the whole Groundhog Day thing going on, you know? It's like, that's what we want to feel. We're tired from that, you know? We want to feel tired from the I. But again, it takes some deep work, you know? So, yeah, these are the 3 levels of consciousness. Next slide. I think we did this last week.
We did.
Yeah.
Up. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're moving into this one. This one. Yeah. What I want to cover this week is the bodies. Why this is like the main reason, especially when we move into highest yoga tantra practice. This is the main reason. This is what we can achieve, these bodies, these 4 bodies in Buddha, the 4 kayas. Kaya is the Sanskrit term for body. Sorry, let me just move forward to my notes. But body, so what we mean by body is actually a body of experience. It's not like a gross body like ours. It's the experience. It's basically the whole, like you say, a body of water or something. It's like the body experience. It's the whole what Buddha experiences. You know, that body. That's his whole experience. It's a dimension or a facet. Sorry, I'm to get the right word of the Buddha's experience. A dimension or facet of his experience. And what is those bodies experience? It's not anything to do with gross physical matter. It's all coming from the mind. You know, I mean, even this gross body is coming from the mind. You know, it comes from the Dharma delusion. But the Buddha's body is the Dharmakaya, truth body, and the Sambhogakaya, the Rupakaya, is the 4 bodies of the Buddha. Sambhogakaya is enjoyment body. Well, that sounds nice. Tara is, when we see the image of Tara, you know, this is an enjoyment body, you know, when the enjoyment body usually have various ornaments, you know, just showing all the ornaments embody their qualities. They come from mind. The ornaments of Tara are all showing like the perfection of the 6 perfections, you know, like generosity, wisdom, compassion, joyous effort. They are born from that perfection. They're born from that wisdom. So in the Buddhist tradition, what our aim is, especially at the level when we move into Tantra practice, is to awaken these bodies, to achieve these 4 bodies. That's the ultimate goal. So Dharmakaya is, so what's Dharmakaya? Probably says there, doesn't it? Yeah, the wisdom truth body, the Buddha. And that one is the wisdom aspect, showing the wisdom aspect in the Buddha. And it has ability to see, so it's a body of experience, remember. So it doesn't actually have an aspect like we see Tara or we see Buddha. They're called like the Rupakaya, the form bodies of the Buddha. Dharmakaya doesn't have like a physical form. It's the omniscient mind of the Buddha. So when you become fully enlightened, you achieve that wisdom truth body the Buddhas. And what Lama Yeshe described it as limitless blissful awareness unified with emptiness. So what that means is you can see all phenomena, all beings, all their minds. You know, there's no limit to what you can see with that mind, all the universes, all the beings, all their mental capacities, and you're continually abiding in this blissful experience of emptiness, and you could say bodhicitta, you know, a vast blissful awareness, like the sky, you know, it covers all phenomena, all beings. So that's Dharmakaya, you know, so that's the first body in terms of tantric practice. We want to get there because actually, as I'm going to explain, we can't get there just with sutra practice. I'll explain that later. Sambhogakaya. So from Dharmakaya, from the experience of Dharmakaya, then because we want to benefit sentient beings, so we've developed this bodhicitta motivation. So from there, we can achieve what we call these form bodies, Sambhogakaya, enjoyment body, which can only be seen. So the Dharmakaya, that can only be seen by other Buddhas. We can't directly see that because it's not our experience, you know. I mean, of course, we feel the presence sometimes of holy beings, and we do feel like we're being guided, but we can't actually perceive and communicate with that level of experience because we're not there. So only at that level can other Buddhas, they can communicate with each other at that level, however they communicate. I don't know how it is, but it's very subtle levels of communication. Sambhogakaya. So because of that, it's like, well, what's the point in getting enlightened if nobody can? I mean, it's not going to benefit anybody if they're all like blissed out and we're still here, So then, of course, they know that. So they then have to manifest in forms that can teach us, communicate with us. So the first level of manifestation is what we call the enjoyment body. And that's a little bit what we call more gross. It's still blissed out and empty and pure, but it's a body that other what we call higher. It's only accessible to what we call higher level bodhisattvas, these images of Tara, what other we've got Chenrezig, the ones with the ornaments, these enjoyment bodies can only be seen by what we call, directly seen by Arya bodhisattvas. So someone who's already a direct perception of emptiness, but they're still moving, they still have some grosser, some subtle delusions to remove. So their minds are very pure, but they can't see the Buddhas, but they can see this aspect of the Buddhas, because the Buddhas can sort of manifest in those sort of more subtle forms. And that's why we can't see them, but we need images and deities, and we need the statues and things, because we can't see them directly. But as I say, there's sometimes people have experiences of like the statues maybe communicating with them, So that could be an experience of the being coming through the statues, But still, unless you've had a direct perception of emptiness, or you're high up in the bodhisattva grounds, we won't be able to like actually say, "Oh, hi," and I can ask you this question, So it's not going to be like that. Can read about great beings who have those experiences, some of the lamas, high deities, and maybe some of you have had that, I don't know. So that's one level. We want to achieve that. And the other one is in our Manakaya, the emanation body. This one aspect of a sort of more subtle Manakaya is like Medicine Buddha, which he doesn't have ornaments, So again, it's a little bit more what we call grosser level of manifestation, so that another level who are not as high as these bodhisattvas and Aryas, we can see them, So there's Medicine Buddha, and Shakyamuni Buddha's aspect is Nirmanakaya. So the Buddha, how we say when the Buddha came to this world and showed enlightenment, manifested enlightenment, that was what we call a supreme Nirmanakaya. Supreme because he came at a time when the teachings weren't available. So he manifested into this world when there was no teachings, and he manifested achieving enlightenment and then teaching us how you achieve enlightenment. So it's called supreme because that kind of manifestation comes when there's no other teachings available, And so it's a supreme emanation. But then from then, there's other, the Manakaya can manifest in much more gross forms. Sometimes people think they're dogs or they're pets, or maybe Buddhas, I don't know, They can manifest as dogs, pets, animals, humans. But what we mainly say, we try to kind of get this awareness, especially when we move into taking tantric empowerments. And I'm going to talk about this as well, the Praxiguru Yoga, of starting to see like actually our teachers are emanations of the Buddhas, because who else is teaching us? The Buddha just didn't get enlightened to just like go into his own blissful state. He spent many lifetimes, giving away his possessions, his body. In his previous life, he gave his body to the tigress, and dedicated to achieve enlightenment for all sentient beings, So they don't just go into enlightenment and forget about us. I mean, each Buddha has karma to to benefit certain beings, you know. They can't, if they could, they would enlighten everybody, but it's up to our karma as well, our merit. So Nirmanakaya, it says, is manifesting all the time for us, that emanation body, in subtle and grosser forms, all the way up to being a rock or a stone or an animal or and a teacher's more, I would say, is a more exalted level because they're teaching you the Dharma, you know. So, and that's, and we're fortunate if we can hear that and understand it and start to understand there's a pathway out of samsara. So so for us, so the whole kind of goal of Tantra is to, you know, well, I need to do that too. I can't just get enlightened and just go into my own bliss. You know, the whole point of the Mahayana path is to then kind of take this responsibility to try, you know, to achieve these bodies, grosser and subtle, to benefit sentient beings, to be able to emanate to benefit many, many sentient beings. How do these bodies work? How do they operate, you know? Well, it's a bit like this quote says, when the sun and moon rises, billions of reflections spontaneously rise in all the bodies of water on the earth, in oceans, rivers, ponds, and even drops of dew. Like this, effortlessly, spontaneously, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas work for sentient beings by revealing the various methods that suit them. You see, just like the moon's reflected in that drop there. So when we have the merit, when we have a certain fortune, a certain, you know, something's going to waken up in us, the Buddhas know. And somehow we feel like, oh, I think I'm more than what I already feel I am. Something, you know, I don't know, but it's different for everyone. I mean, many of us met the Dharma in certain ways this life, you know, so when we look back, what drew us to meet the Dharma, to sort of wake up and feel like I want to, you know, I need to experience something much more than what's happening here right now in my life, you know. So like that, the Buddhas know our all thoughts. Like I mean, it's mind blowing, you know, the level of how deeply they know. I mean, I can say that I'm own experience, and some of us here had fortune to meet Lama Zopa Rinpoche. It's mind blowing how much they know about you. I mean, it's more than you know yourself, and that's no exaggeration, you know. Because they can see past lives, future lives, your karmic propensities, you know. It's unbelievable what a Buddha can do, you know, even like Bodhisattva, what they can do for others, you know, for us. But we need to be there. We need to be ready, you know. So like that, when we're ready, they're there. There's not even a thought, oh well, I think that sentient being, I know, I think they're having some problems. I think they're going to open up to the Dharma, and maybe I need to start a centre in that place. And it's not like that. They just spontaneously, that's what bodhicitta is, you know, it's spontaneously knowing all sentient beings and where they are and when they're ready and how to guide and how to teach and their karmic capacity. It's like, so we have all that ability, you know, we have that potential. And so that's what we can awaken or open or at least make some big steps in this life. That's why it's very important in this tradition to go back and forward. Okay, we have to work with our limitations, but also getting really inspired about what we can do with our mind, you know, even if it just, we only make this much this life, this much next life, this one. But, you know, 16 lifetimes, supposedly, if you practice Sutra and Tantra together, you keep your tantric vows, you keep your commitments with your teacher, up to 16 lives, you can become like fully enlightened, you know, Buddha. That's very short. And compared to, we've always had consciousness and never been awake fully, you know, it's very short. So, you know, for myself as well, you have to keep thinking about that, you know, because it does become a little bit of a responsibility to work on your mind when we have all these incredible teachings available to us, you know, incredible teachers. We have great masters in this tradition. We have masters who can give these tantric empowerments, you know, because there'll be a time when we don't. You know? Even I remember 20 years ago when I was living in the Bay Area, and Lama Zopa Rinpoche invited all his gurus. They were in their 80s. Lama Zopa Rinpoche was in his 50s. And they were all in their 80s because they had all come from Tibet. They were in their 70s, 80s. They'd come from Tibet. So, I mean, it's incredible the caliber of Lama who came for Tibet, you know, because they came for this really, really deep, intense training. And I think just the power of the place, you know. So you could really feel like they were just oozing with a tradition, you know, it's like coming out of their pores, you know, and the realizations and the qualities and how subdued, you know, they were, and so dedicated to practice. And so we had lots of them coming to the Bay Area, but you know, now most of them have passed away. You know, so even we still have some, and actually in the Bay Area now, there's a great Lama. He's in his 70s, who also came for Tibet. He was born there very young. He was in the younger generation who escaped. And he's giving lots of initiations now. But it's like, I even noticed from 20 years ago, to get certain initiations, it's not quite as easy, you know. So we still have these high lamas who give them, but it's definitely shifting, you know. So like that, you know, like they say, and as Rinpoche says, we're not alone because the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas around us, loving us, guiding us, that's what they do. So when we do practices, when we do like Guru Yoga practice, when we do a tantric practice, I think it gives you more of a feeling of that's what's actually happening. You know, you start to feel like, because the way they set up tantric retreats, and some of us, I know, anyone here done a tantric 100,000 something or other? Yeah. So it's amazing when you do it, isn't it? Because you set up the retreat where you close off boundaries and borders, and you set an environment where it's like you're inviting these deities to come, even though you can't see them, you know that they're there. You can feel it, you know. It really gives you this incredible energy to, and it's a sort of special method where you start to feel like there are things waking up in you that you hadn't experienced before. Of course, you also can experience that when you're around special beings, special teachers. So, because one example of this is, of course, the story of Sangha. Some of us, who knows the story of, most of us know the story of Sangha. No, I know some of us do online. I always talk about this in terms of this example of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas being around us all the time. It's just that we may or may not feel them. We certainly don't see them, but that's what they are. You know, they're. I mean, I know that because one time, you know, a couple of times, you know, I was caught out with him. She was in India or something, and there was I was living at his house, and I had some problem. And Rinpoche never called the house in Washington. I mean, you know, that was the days when you didn't have WhatsApp and all these things. You just had the phone, you know. And I was having some difficult time, dreams, and I was kind of anxious and like not sure what was going on. And Rinpoche never, and he called the house that day. He never called any other time. And he was in India. And he's like, how are you? I forgot to tell him about the dreams because it was so like blissed out that he called. I never spoke to him on the phone before. And I was like, oh my God, it was the middle of the night and I was half dressed. And I was like, Dr. Guru, with like your underwear on, you know, or you know, just your undergarments. And then after Rinpoche, after the phone went down, then I had this dream, and then I realised that whatever difficulty or problem, it was gone, you know. And Rinpoche was in Nepal and India. And I was in America, and I'm like, oh my, you know, it's like, wow, these beings really do. I mean, they really know everything that's going on, you know. It's quite mind blowing, you know. So imagine, you know, imagine if we could do that for others. That's the quality of fearless, you know, that's actually quality of Tara, freeing others from fears. Because I was experiencing some sort of anxiety or fear because I was having these bad dreams, and it's like that sort of quality can awaken in you, you know, because you actually can see everything and what's going on. And this is why we need the wisdom side, because there's only so much you can help with a good heart. I mean, it's very important to have a good heart. We need that because there's no body cheating about a good heart. But again, we don't always know the right way to go, you know. So, but when the wisdom opens up, the deep wisdom, then the mind's like, oh wow, can see so much how to help. You know, and there's so many stories, His Holiness, Lam Rinpoche, Lama Yeshe, being able to see deeply into the problem, you know, so they really know how to you know, help that being. Well, the other story is a Sangha, Just in terms of this story, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas always being around. Asanga was he was a great scholar, and then he went to meditate. I think it was around the 2nd century. He went off to meditate in a cave because he wanted to have a vision of Maitreya Buddha. Maitreya is the next Buddha, Buddha number 5, who's going to come into this world, Buddha of loving kindness. But he thought, well, I want to have a vision of Maitreya now, so he went into retreat. In those days, it definitely was in a cave, very simple situation. He meditated for some years, and then he was just not having any luck. He was doing all these prayers and mantras, and nothing was happening. And he thought, I'm not going to get anywhere here. So he started to walk down the hill, and he saw someone. I think someone had there was I can't quite remember all the stories, but somebody was rubbing away at a rock with a piece of cloth. And he says, well, what are you doing there? And he says, well, I'm trying to make a needle. He's like, eh? And he says, well, if he's got such determination to make a needle out of that piece of rock with just rubbing the cloth, surely I can work away in my mind. This is a much more noble motivation, And then he did another 3 years, and he's like, no, it's just, I'm still not getting anywhere here, So he came down the hill, and he's like, then he saw he saw some water dripping on a rock, and then he saw there was a hole, there was an indent, and it was softening the rock, and he thought, well, if I can, if that piece of that drip can do that, then surely if I keep meditating, it'll impact my mind, So like that, and then there was another time he came down, but I'm not remembering. He saw something else again, and he thought, okay. So he went back up the hill. So after 12 years, he's like, okay, no matter what, I'm done, So he comes down the hill, and he says he sees this dog that's full of maggots and really sick, and so he felt like, and his heart just went, he felt so much compassion for the dog, So he took a bit of, the dog was also hungry and everything, so all he had was his own flesh, so he cut a wee bit of his flesh off and he fed it to the dog. But he's like, well, those maggots, that's horrible. He couldn't bear it. And he thought, well, if I take them out with my hands, I might hurt them because they're really small and delicate. So he went like this with his tongue, and he was going to take them out with his tongue because he didn't want to hurt them at all. And he closed his eyes, and he was a bit like, oh, and he got his tongue, and he was trying to get it back. And then he couldn't feel the maggot. It's like, where is it, Then the dog had transformed into Maitreya Buddha.
Oh.
And he's like, supposedly says, well, where were you all this time, I don't know, it's the 2nd century, but the story is told, But it did generally something like this happened, where the dog, and Maitreya says, well, I was here the whole time, but you didn't have the karmic perception to see me. But you generated compassion for the dog, me, in that aspect, and that caused, so what happened is Maitreya Buddha manifests as the dog, and through him purifying his mind, his karmic perception, feeling so much compassion, he had the karma to see the Maitreya Buddha as the dog is Maitreya Buddha. And then he's like, well, I don't know. And he says, I was in your cave the whole time. Look, I've got spit on my thing, because, he could probably spittle out some of his thing whatever he was doing in that century. I don't know how they brushed their teeth or what they did, in the cave. But, he says, look, I was sitting in the corner of your cave, but you never saw me. You couldn't see me because I've got spit all over my top here as well. So he says, no, I don't believe you. So he took him downtown. He says, no, I think everybody can see you. He put him on his shoulder, took him through the local town. Nobody saw Maitreya Buddha. One lady saw the dog. Nobody saw Maitreya Buddha because didn't have the perception, So then it said he took Maitreya Asanga up to his pure realm and gave him certain teachings, which are still studied and practiced in the monastery, Ornament of clear realization was one of them. And then, he went up there and he came back down and, taught those teachings, at that time. So this is what Tantra's working with. It's our pure, it's shifting our perception. There's another story of these 2 monks. One monk was there was 2 monks. One was the guru, one was the disciple, and they were at quite a high level of tantric practice. And there's a point where you wander. You go wandering and you just use that experience, whatever to work on your tantric practice. So they were both sort of wandering yogi ascetics. And they had both done like retreats and different things together. But the way Lama Zopa tells it, one was actually the teacher, one was the disciple. So they were both walking in the same area, but not together. And supposedly the teacher came across this leper woman who wanted to cross a river. Well, they were both monks, and the teacher thought, well, I've got my vows, I shouldn't touch anybody, any women, that's one of the vows, So he, he felt compassion for the lady, but he thought, well, I have tantric vows and I'm not supposed to touch women. So he didn't take her across, So later, the other monk comes, it's a disciple, and he thought, he saw her and he immediately felt like compassion for her, and he picked her up. And he didn't think about my vows or any. He's just like, this poor woman suffering, and he picked it. And also, he was afraid of the leprosy and all that, the previous one. But he's like, no, I'm going to help this lady. So he took her across the river. And when they either got halfway across, say different interpretations, or they got to the other side, and she transformed into Vajrayini, his deity. Because again of the compassion and the pure perception, So she emanated. So again, she emanated as that type of being, because she obviously knew there was an opportunity for either of those monks, if they could shift their mind and see the pure aspect of her and open up compassion, they would be able to purify their mind and see her, and also awaken, their experience of the deity. So then it's said that, he was taken up to her Pure Land after that, because of that experience, whereas the other teacher didn't have that opportunity to get enlightened at that time, So that's also saying that, again, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can manifest at any time, So the practice of Tantra is to try and see the divinity in everybody, their pure nature, even though it's sometimes hard. But again, it starts with having a respect for others, not harming others. We start there. But in tantric practice, that's what we're trying to do, trying to see that ultimately everybody's pure, and seeing that divinity there. So at least, it doesn't harm, but at some point it might even create the causes for us to have those kind of experiences, when our mind really opens up with compassion. Next slide. Tantra, so just to bring up a point, someone, I think it was in the other, I'm teaching this to another class as well, but just to, because we did say, in tantric practice, Sutra and Tantra, both you can realize emptiness, right? You can both realize emptiness, but it's only through the practice of Tantra that you can create the causes for these form bodies. These bodies that can emanate to benefit other sentient beings. The Rupakaya, the Rupakaya depends on deity yoga, completion stage yogas, transformation of the subtle wind and mind. So those practices don't exist in Sutra, they only exist and again, the Rupakaya, so Kriya Tantra, it's like, progressive, the different classes of Tantra. As I said, there's Kriya Tantra, lower Tantras. Then there's performance in yoga, which is not commonly practiced in our tradition, which maybe it's just as well, because it would already be too much for us. But high yoga Tantra is where we can achieve these kind of like abilities to be able to manifest for others, in certain ways, either on a subtle or a grosser level through Nirmanakaya and Sambhogakaya. So we can only do that at the level of high yoga Tantra because we access what we call the most subtle level of consciousness. So we can only achieve those form bodies in the most subtle level of our being. I mentioned there's 3 levels of consciousness: gross, subtle, and very subtle. So it's only at the level of the very subtle consciousness that you can awaken Dharmakaya, the truth body, the Buddha. And from there, when you've achieved that, then you can arise as out of that, manifest in these form body aspects. So actually, if you want to achieve enlightenment, you actually do need to practice Tantra at some point. So, you know, in the Hinayana model, Hinayana lower vehicle, their main aim is to achieve self-liberation, and that's achieved on a still a subtle level of consciousness, but not the most subtle. At that level, you still have some obscurations to achieve bodhicitta. So what you do is you go into when you achieve self-liberation, I mean, you no longer harm others, you're no longer born in samsara, you're out of the loop, and you're in this state of deep peace, but you're not harming others, but you're not benefiting others either, right? But that's huge. It's not like it's nothing. I mean, that's like massive to become an arhat, to achieve, as mind-blowing, But they say in this tradition, better to practice Tantra earlier on, because then you create the imprints to get enlightened for all sentient beings, and you can get enlightened quicker, So of course, the Mahayana path, where we have this motivation to benefit all sentient beings. So we want to try and start to hold that early on in the path, because even though it seems it's going to take a bit more work to achieve these form bodies, it's only through the practice of Tantra that you can achieve them. So we will say, well, but the Buddha came to this world and he practiced sutra. There wasn't any Tantra for the big audience, right, the general audiences. So how come that is? So somebody asked that the other day in the class, and that is because the Buddha already. So from the Mahayana viewpoint, the Buddha was already enlightened. He was just showing the path. He already practiced Tantra through other Buddhas in his previous lives. So he'd already created the causes for the form bodies in previous lives. So from this is where it gets a bit more esoteric. From the Hinayana, from the Sutra viewpoint, he came to this world and he was almost enlightened, but he finished the path. From the Mahayana, Vajrayana viewpoint, he already had all the causes, and he had already achieved enlightenment. He was simply showing how you practice, like that. Because that means he had already created the causes for enlightenment in the Dharmakaya, the Rupakaya form bodies in his previous lives through the practice of Tantra and Sutra together. So it's a little bit different, a little bit more esoteric way of looking at it, but that's from the Mahayana viewpoint. Any questions for that? Comments? I think, Kim, you asked maybe something around that last week. Was that and I had said that I would address your question. Was that it, or was it something else?
It was something else. It was slide 28, but I don't know if you want to go back.
Yeah, because I think that might be coming next. 28. Therefore, the realization occurred. That one?
Yes.
So I think it is addressing that part, because what we're saying here is in Sutra, the realization emptiness, it's a coarser level of consciousness, but it doesn't, so then that's not full enlightenment, and it doesn't allow you to achieve the form bodies of the Buddha. One needs to achieve what we call the Dharmakaya on the basis of the most subtle level of consciousness. And that's the difference between Sutra and Tantra.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Making a bit sense?
It will eventually.
It takes a while to sink in. Maybe Joe?
Thanks.
You have a question?
Yes. How do you spell kaya?
Kaya.
Kaya?
I think it's, where is it? Is it here?
Yeah.
Kaya. Yeah. K for king, A for apple, Y for yellow, and A for apple. Because my A's sound like E sometimes. So is it making some sense here, how we need to practice Tantra? Because you can't emanate for others if you don't practice Tantra. You can't do all these incredible things to bring others to enlightenment without the practice of Tantra, getting into these more subtle level of consciousness, a clear light mind, achieving, awakening your fully embodied nature, Buddhahood. That is not going to happen without the practice of Tantra. So at some point, even those on the Sutra path in some lifetime, if they want to achieve full enlightenment, have to practice Tantra. Did you have a question?
Yeah, there were two ordinaries. You said the ordinary appearance, and there was another ordinary something.
What was that? The ordinary one?
Ordinary
Ordinary appearance and ordinary
speech.
grasping.
Grasping.
Yeah.
Ordinary grasping. Okay.
Yeah, ordinary appearing, the eye, how they appear, we appear to ourselves in our sort of ordinary individual self-existent way, and then that we grasp at that, we cling at that. So those are the two we need to, we're working on in Tantra, What else do we need to qualify as for tantric practice? So we've talked quite a bit about the three principles of the path: renunciation, symbol by the lotus, emerging from dissatisfaction; bodhicitta, opening the heart, taking on a sort of responsibility to move our mind into embracing all sentient beings, being our father and mother, being some beings that we want to really help, get out of that problem. It's a bit like Lama Zopa Rinpoche would say, yeah, we can achieve self-liberation, but it's a bit like being on the edge of an ocean, like if you're in the water, you're on the edge of a riverbank, and you see, maybe I'm not getting this analogy right. Yeah, it's kind of, you're both struggling in the water somehow, and you manage to pull yourself out of this, current, and then you're okay, but you just watch everybody else get moved away. It's a little bit like that, Rinpoche would say. There's a level of self-involvement. It's called self-cherishing, and it's a subtle, it's kind of like imprints. So we achieve liberation, but then there's subtle imprints on the consciousness that are blocking this quality bodhicitta, blocking this ability, this sensitivity to other sentient beings' predicament. So it's like that. It's not like we're totally selfish in that experience. I mean, even the arhats have incredible compassion, but there's not a kind of, and I'm going to help them. That's not there. Because we can see that something, well, that's really kind, that I feel real compassion for that person, but we don't actively then do something, I mean, it's good that we feel compassion. They might feel it in a way, but this is becoming, saying actively, I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the rest of my limitations so I can become like these holy beings, that can manifest bodies, do all these things at any time, I mean, we all feel that benefit for many of us who have been around these great teachers. So we need to do it now, So it's kind of like that, taking that. So actually the definition of bodhicitta is to achieve, generating the aspiration, the determination to achieve enlightenment in order to free all being, for all sentient beings, It's like that mind that's focused on enlightenment to benefit all sentient beings, to liberate sentient beings from suffering and the causes of suffering. That's the kind of definition. I mean, the experience is a complete, like you don't have to think about it once you've developed stable bodhicitta. It's just what you're doing all the time. You're completely sensitized to all sentient beings. So all you're doing is, it's like just an impulse at that level, it's spontaneous. There's no thought to benefit others, but right now we need to, bring about the thought, but at a level of bodhicitta, it's just completely spontaneous all the time, and you also have the skill and the wisdom to see what to do too. And again, bodhicitta, there's the conventional and ultimate. So ultimate bodhicitta is combined, this mind of bodhicitta combined with the right view of emptiness, the right view of reality. So on that basis, what else we need? So they're the common preliminary practices. The uncommon one, the role of the guru, tantric empowerment, and other elements of practice to deepen and stabilize what we received at the tantric empowerment. So first one, the role of the teacher, that's very important. So even when we move in the Tibetan tradition, when we start studying, a lot of the time we see at the beginning of prayers, the foundation of all good qualities is a kind and venerable guru. The guru becomes quite important, even at the practice of sutra. And that's partly because the goal in Tibetan Buddhist practice is to, also move into tantric practice, to blend sutra and tantric practice together. And at the level of Tantra, the guru it does become very important, you know, the teacher, the spiritual teacher, because it is not enough merely to know why such so. We must also know that allows us to follow the radical approach. In other words, we need to be. So yeah, one of the big roles of the guru, we need a teacher for anything. So there's sort of two parts of this I was going to just discuss. Inspiration. I mean, for sure, you know, to have an embodiment of someone who you want to become. It's like, wow, that's you can't ask for any more than that. That's very precious, you know. To have somebody like a bodhisattva or you know, a great teacher, being in their presence, seeing their activities, looking at their qualities. I mean, that's you know, huge for our spiritual development, you know, having that type of teacher. So that's one of the main jobs of a teacher, is bringing about you know, our inspiration to practice. Because it's not easy to see your stuff. It's very easy to get kind of uninspired and ordinary grasping, ordinary appearance. Yeah, we're in that most of the time. So we do need this kind of incredible inspiration in these teachers. And we can have different levels of teachers as well. Of course, we have great gurus and lamas, and then we have, you know, monastics or lay teachers, you know, but we need that, you know, we need that inspiration. Because, and certainly at the level of taking Tantra, you know, moving into Tantra, maybe taking Tantric commitments, we say, you know, there's a Lama Lieshe uses as expression, or it's used that all the realizations come from the guru. He agrees. You see. You know, so what does that really mean though? All realizations come from the guru. What do we think? What do we feel? Anybody want to share? All realizations. This is fun. I mean, we see this often. The more we move into sutra and tantric practice, and we start to feel and understand the importance of the spiritual teacher. How do we process that a little bit in our minds?
Well, you're seeing it. You're seeing them. It's showing a path that you can go on.
Yeah.
And without seeing, it's like a light.
Yes.
So then you have the ability to take the step on them.
Yeah. So what's your name, sorry?
Jenny.
Jenny was just saying, by seeing them, you know, that gives you, like, you know, you can see where you want to go, how you want to be. Anything else?
Well,
Anyone else?
you see your
Yes,
teacher.
Julia.
Sorry.
Yes, Julia.
You see your teacher as your guru, as the Buddha, and you have this experience, especially if you've had the experience of the empowerment from that teacher with that deity, and you can have this subtle transformation into this clear light mind space on whatever level we're able to accomplish within ourselves, with, you know, opening ourselves up like that. But basically, you see your guru as the Buddha. You have this Buddha nature, and you can become one with that, with the deity practice, with your teacher.
Thank you. Yes, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, you know, that's great. Anyone else? What do we feel like with the guru and the practice, and seeing how all the realizations come for the guru? Well, there's two level of guru as well. So it's definitely, you know, what Julia said. There's, you know, when that we're saying that comment as well, it's like, yeah, well, first of all, they definitely come from teachings, initiations out there, you know, from that spiritual teacher, inspiration, all these things. But they also come from our inner guru, you know, so there's an inner and an outer guru, you know, so we want our inner guru to become closer to the outer guru, you know, so yes, the realizations come from the outer. So that expression means both, you know, realizations come from the outer guru, you know, who's so inspiring, and, you know, all the different aspects and manifestations. And again, the outer guru can not just be the big tantric guru sitting on the throne, you know. It's also through any wisdom we receive from any teaching, that nurtures our inner guru, that nurtures us towards the path to awakening and enlightenment. You know, so in that level, we're working on both at the same time, you know, the outer guru and nurturing and awakening the inner guru. So realizations come from both, come from outer and inner together. And eventually they become completely harmonious, completely one. But we need the outer guru for quite a long time before we can deeply relate to the inner guru. Right? We do need a lot of instruction and guide. We need the path, we need the journey, we need the instructions, you know, because we all have some wisdom, some merit, fortune to know partly how to guide and navigate our lives, but all the way up to enlightenment, no easy, you know. And actually it says, you know, the deeper we go into the practice, Lama Zopa Rinpoche would say, the more we need to rely on the teacher, outer teacher. The more our inner guru awakens up, the more we need to rely on the inner teacher, because there's our deep subtleties that we need to get through, you know, they're not always easy, you know. So, and eventually the outer and inner guru become one. So Guru Yoga is very much about navigating this outer and inner guru, awakening our inner guru, as we navigate and follow and practice the advice, the teachings, the commitments of the outer guru, because that's all the outer guru's doing. As you say, it's a reflection of our inner guru, but that's still quite hidden, you know. So we need both for some time. So Guru Yoga is nurturing both of those, you know, by following the advice, the commitments, and everything of the outer guru. Then we become slowly our inner guru wakes up and we become unified. Yoga also means unifying. Our mind becomes unified with the guru. So this becomes very important in Tantra. You know, as Julia was saying, in Tantra, once you receive an initiation empowerment, it's our job, commitment, samaya, to start practicing seeing the guru as a deity. And there's a psychological reason for that. And I don't just mean like general Western psychology, but a deep psychological reason for that in terms of us being able to eventually see ourselves as a Buddha. Because right now they're ordinary. And it's a bit like when we go back to the case of Asanga. Only at a certain point could you see Maitreya as the Buddha. You know, the actual pure perception of Maitreya. There's another example, Lama Zopa Rinpoche is saying, I can't say I've got all this down by any means, you know. So, but there's this other example that I wanted to share in this vein is Marpa and Milarepa. They were great enlightened yogis. Some of us know about Milarepa, who turned green because he meditated for so many years, living off nails in a cave. One of the most revered saints in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition for the 11th century, because he so much hardship to get enlightened, you know. And he achieved enlightenment in that lifetime. So no, it's not Milarepa. So Marpa was the guru in Milarepa, and then Naropa was the guru of Marpa. So it's this incredible lineage of Kagyu masters. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to tell the story of Marpa, the guru Milarepa, when he was studying under his guru Naropa. He was already at a very high level of accomplishment. And then one day, Marpa manifested, he was able, because Marpa was already like, well, he was his guru, he was the high level. Naropa, sorry, was already, I don't know, enlightened, but very close. So he manifested an image of the deity. I don't know if it was Huruk or whatever deity they were practicing. So there was a vision of the deity that both Marpa and Naropa could see. And Naropa was, in his ordinary aspect, there was an aspect of the deity. And I think Naropa asked Marpa, the disciple, who's it, something like, who's it most important to prostrate to? And he prostrated to the deity. So it's supposedly that it's slightly delayed Marpa's enlightenment. So it's a very subtle point, but what it's showing there is something around pure perception, you know, something around, so because this is what we practice in Tantra. You know, we have the guru who's sitting on, he's human and he's given an empowerment and initiation. But there's something in the psychology of us being able to practice seeing the guru as the deity. How that's going to transform our mind into enlightenment. You know, so I can't say exactly how it all works, but basically that's a very important part of tantric practice, is being able to this. So if we can't see our guru as a deity, how are we going to see all other beings as a deity? You know, how was that person who, that old lady turned into Vajrayogini? You know, how if you can't see his guru as a deity, there's no way he would have had that, been able to have a pure perception of that level of being. Not that he maybe thought she was Vajrayogini, but he had so much compassion, you know. So there's an important part, and this is why we start very early on. We're trying to at least have a kind of pure perception of our teacher, you know, keep our mind very clean in relationship to our teacher. Because when you move into Tantra, that becomes more significant, and it does make an impact on your progress of Tantra, because it's very much about keeping this, training our mind in pure perception. And it has to be very organic. You can't just say, oh yeah, my teacher's a Buddha and I love him, and he's Shakyamuni Buddha, or he's Tara, or he's, you know, I mean, it's kind of all up here. No, that has to become like a really deep organic experience, and that takes some time to train the mind, you know, and that takes some time being with the teacher, the Lama, over so many years, and experiencing their qualities and really feeling like, wow, this is a really, really incredible being. And it comes in sort of over time more naturally, you know. It's not kind of fake or false or something like that, but there's something in that practice there. That's why we have to be careful when we take tantric empowerments, because we do need to keep up at least a pure perception of teacher. Some teachers can be very charismatic teachers, great, I love that person, but you know, we don't know what their behavior is behind the scenes, you know, so we need to be careful. Isolinus always talks about fake lamas, you know, so we need to check out the Sangha, the this, the that, you know, and really check a little bit before we take tantric empowerments, because that's one of the sort of samayas we need to keep, is that kind of at least purity perception around the teacher. So if you hear later they did this, that, the next time, you need to be able to keep your mind in equanimity, because it can affect that practice you took with that being, you know. So that's quite important. So that's so yeah, this is really what I was just saying here, you know. The Guru Yoga is unifying our inner guru with the outer guru, slowly, step by step by step, and it has to come through following the advice, teachings to do like that, and then, you know, slowly our outer guru comes here, then our guru, and then slowly they meet, you know, they unify, you know, your mind unifies with the mind of the teacher, the mind of the deity, because again, we're trying to hold the deity and the guru as inseparable, so that there's no separation with that, as Julia was saying there. And okay, I didn't mention that one. We talked about that. Just very briefly, since we started a little bit late, I'll have to go maybe about another 10 minutes. When we get high Yoga Tantra, so there's different levels of empowerment, isn't there? There's high Yoga Tantra, and that one we take tantric vows, we take bodhisattva vows. That one's more serious in terms of the level of commitments we take. And at that level of high Yoga Tantra, we take these empowerments. And I mentioned about the 4 bodies, you know, the different bodies that we can achieve. The vase empowerment creates the karma, it plants a seed. So without these empowerments, again, this is what it's showing, you know, without these level of empowerment, it's not possible for us to achieve these bodies, because we need the, you know, everything, to achieve it, to grow anything, we need to plant seeds, you know. I mean, to achieve anything in your life, you kind of plant seeds for that, you know, we prepare. So similarly, at the level of high Yoga Tantra, we need to receive these 4 empowerments to plant the seeds to achieve these 4 bodies: the emanation body, the enjoyment body, the wisdom truth body, and there's another one. So the last 2 are more related to the wisdom aspect, the Buddha bodies. The first 2 are to achieve, to be able to emanate out for other beings, you know, to benefit other beings. So at the level of high Yoga Tantra, these are the 4 empowerments we need. So again, this is moving into the point that even the Buddha, he would have received these empowerments for other Buddhas before he achieved enlightenment. in other lifetimes, That's what it, so that's why, again, Tantra's, in many ways, we're very fortunate because often Tantra is, as I said in the very beginning of the class, Tantra is very rare, it's not taught by all the Buddhas. And if it is taught, it would be taught at the level of like high level bodhisattvas who are already like in sort of some pure realms, But somehow we have the karma merit as ordinary beings, still ordinary grasping, ordinary appearance, still there, but we have the merit and the karma to hear Tantra, to somehow have some aspiration towards that, some interest, and even create some seeds and imprints this life. So that's why they say, even at so one level in this tradition, it's a bit contradictory to say be careful what teacher you take and do, because the main reason for that is so we keep our mind in a pure perception of that teacher, But on the other level, it's good to take tantric empowerments because not all the Buddhas teach it. We want to create the imprints in our mind for future lives because we will eventually need to practice Tantra. So if we feel attracted to it, inspired, but even though we can't keep our commitments very well, we can't meditate as well as we'd like, it's creating seeds to meet the tantric teachings in future lives and achieve enlightenment more quickly. So there's two sides of the coin there, The key one really is making sure when we take it, we can keep minimally the commitments we have. Because at the level of high yoga tantra, we take 6 session guru yoga, we have to take tantric vows. And bodhisattva vows, so it's a lot, but at least minimally to keep them and try to just be happy, not like commitments to do. Some people are laughing. Got to finish that sadhana the night, You're tired at the end of the day, you've been working us off to do that sadhana, So we try not to do that. You can still be tired, but say, how wonderful, I've got a few more minutes, I'll just finish off this sadhana and we try, because it's all about what you're putting in your container, your mind, Mm-hmm. Try and remember the preciousness, how for even as ordinary beings, we somehow have been able to get these commitments, these initiations. What's the next slide? So yes, as I said, other things. So we, again, these, so to develop bodhicitta, we need the, so as I mentioned before, to practice morality, we need the container of vows. They support and protect our mind and morality. To develop bodhicitta, the ultimate good heart, the one that really wants to, that sort of brave heart that really wants to kind of get enlightened for all sentient beings, then we need the container of the bodhisattva vows. And actually, many of them, in many ways, so bodhisattva vows, I mean, they're not, it's hard to break them completely, when we have them, but we definitely, in subtle ways, we do, so, but either way, but bodhisattva vows, and then to practice high yoga tantra and awaken these more subtle levels of consciousness in which we achieve enlightenment, we need the vessel of the tantric vows. We just need them, that's what they would have seen, we need this support. And then within that, enlightenment can happen, we become the container for realizations and enlightenment to happen easily. If they're kept very well, then it becomes very easy for us to get realizations. What else? So tantric vows, meditation. So that's what I mentioned. Often when you take a tantric initiation, you will have either some commitment to do sadhana, sadhana every day or mantras every day, and as much as we can to try and feel joyful about that, remembering the benefits. And then if we have the opportunity, as I mentioned before, to do a nearing retreat, approximation retreat of that deity that we took the practice in, whether it's Tara, Medicine Buddha, or at the high level of Tantra, to do that approximation and nearing, it means becoming closer to the deity, well, that's why it's called nearing. We're trying to approximate the experience of the deity through that practice, becoming nearer to that realization, that embodiment of the deity within us. I thought I'd just mention this at the end. Sometimes it feels like that. Sometimes I laugh in here. Because I know some of these commitments and it can feel like that, but try to remember the protection for our mind. And it's for us. Sometimes, I took this from a lama, took this from a teacher. No, we took it for our whole sentient beings, you know. I took it for ourselves, you know. So just as a gentle reminder there. Was there still another slide or was that it? No, I think that was it. Maybe I had another comment on my notes. Does anyone have any questions for that? Comments? See if I've got any else left on my notes. Yes.
I think it's interesting how 16 to 20 or 30 lifetimes is the quick way to enlightenment.
Yeah, the thing is, for us, it feels short, you know? For us, it feels maybe long. Does that feel long? 16 lifetimes?
Well, this one lifetime feels long, so sometimes. So
yeah, that's true. Well, there's that, but yeah, it does feel a lot. I mean, certainly when I was new as a nun, I'm like, I'm going to get enlightened this life. So excited, you know?
Yeah.
After 10 years and 20 years, and then you're like, oh, well, you know. I'm giving up with this life, but you know, you see it long. The delusions are thick, you know. They're not easy.
Do you feel like everyone has a different path in the tantric lineage that manifests more for a certain lifetime? Like mantra is more important for one person, meditation more important for another person, or is it really? Like, is there anything that is more or less important in the tantric path for you?
So your question is, does it manifest differently for different people?
And do you feel like there's something that's more important?
Well, the thing is, when you have a qualified guru, they guide you, you know, for sure, you know, because I wouldn't have had a clue when I met the Dharma, like what I was supposed to be doing. I mean, you hear the teachings, but then Lama Zopa Rinpoche very kindly, you know, my first appointment with Lama Zopa Rinpoche was like, okay, I've heard the teachings, this is great, I want to do this. So what do I do? You know, and Rinpoche would give you and you had to be prepared for that because you get a list of praxis, like 300,000 water bowls, 100,000 prostrations, 100 nunes. You know, that's like, you know, so you need to kind of open your mind up to like the amount you practice. But I think the key thing is, if you're fortunate enough to meet a teacher who guides you, they can help you within the context of this path. Like maybe more specifically what praxis is good for you to focus on. But for all of us, we need to do the three principles of that's going to come in through all the praxis. But how do you start to feel that and you know, get a sense of that, get some realizations, experience of that? Well, the teacher will give you praxis alongside that to help your experience of the three principles of the path and deepen. A qualified teacher will give you a deity practice that fits your disposition, that they see in you. So a qualified teacher will say, well, this deity's, you know, this one or two or three are very good for you, you know, so you need to build up to be able to eventually get the initiation and practice that. So that's how it's worked for me, through the guidance of my teacher. And trying to follow that all the time, you know. But yeah, you're right, the path does unfold slightly different for all of us, you know, and that's why we also have different lineages, and even in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. I mean, they all have Sutra and Tantra, but there's slightly different explanations, approaches like that, how you develop yourself in that path, but they all lead to enlightenment, and they all have the basis of Sutra, they're all based on Sutra and Tantra. Does that answer your question?
It's helpful, yeah.
Anyone else have any other questions, comments?
Angie, I just wanted to say Pamtinga is going to make you an offering through PayPal directly. That's my instructions were no more.
Well, I was wondering about that.
No, I'm sure you weren't, but I'm just saying.
I was going to let you go offline before you told me that.
In case we disappear suddenly. I wanted to say that offering.
Thank you, Julia. That's very sweet. Okay, well, I guess we're at the end. And I hope we got something out of that, something new maybe we'd heard, something we can take away with us, something that's maybe inspiring, something that might want to motivate us to study, practice, meditate more, either in Sutra and Tantra. That's the idea about all the classes. And I don't think I've any more to share above than that. Yeah. Shall we do some dedications? Let me see if I can find something to share. Oopsie. Okay. 3, 2, 5. Here's the dedications. So main thing is always just to keep going with what we're doing, and maybe we can always do a bit more, investigate more, study more, Sutra and Tantra. Try experience more, a little bit more, the renunciation, what that is. Bodhicitta, emptiness, bring that more into our being, alongside developing our understanding, our practice, our experience of Tantra. So if we can practice both of them together, that's like most fortunate person, most fortunate being. Well, that's what Lama Zopa Rinpoche would say, we're the most fortunate one. If we can really work out more deeply how to integrate Sutra and Tantra together in our practice, the most lucky one in our lives, and definitely lead to more and more deeper states of happiness, peace, less confusion, more openness, more kindness, more wisdom. Again, this lifetime's hard, but we just put as many imprints, many seeds as possible on our mind stream. So we meet Dharma, we meet spiritual teachings, life after life, and maybe 16 lifetimes we get enlightened, maybe. Chanju sencho rinpoche mage banam ge gyurshi ge banyam ba me bayi gonne gondu pelwarshu. May the precious view of emptiness, not yet born, arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Is that not on the screen? I didn't share it, did I? Sorry. Let me just share that. Sorry. Pulled it up and didn't share it. I'm going to say all the dedications on the wall. We'll start again. There. It's up there now?
Yep.
Chanchu sencho rinpoche mage panam ge gyurshi ge banyam ba me bayi gonne gondu pelwarshu. May the precious view of emptiness, not yet born, arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. May the precious realization of the two stages, not yet born, arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Incomparable, kind, and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And we also just dedicate for Lama Zopa Rinpoche to have his reincarnation to be the right one to be recognised and have all the conditions to be able to be a great master, inspiration, guide, to be a great outer guru for us in this lifetime, for us and all the beings that it's going to benefit. And for Pamtingpa and Taos group to continue to be of benefit to sentient beings as much as possible, and to have success and all the resources, everything you need to be able to do that, and for all our students for our realizations, our spiritual realizations to keep growing, not diminishing, keep growing. And for us all to feel always inspired by the Dharma, by each other, by our teachers, by the Sangha. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Venerable Angie.
Thank you. Nice to see you all.